everyone. This is Dave Germain. I'm the drummer from Jaya The Cat, also previously from Shadows Fall, crazy metal band. And I'm going to try to give some basic tips on taking care of your equipment, also making sure that it's up and running and that you don't lose it, for instance. And I've been touring for quite a long time, so I'm very used to all of what it takes to go on tour and to play music and to do it live. And I've made all the mistakes. We've lost cymbals, we've forgotten things, things have broken because of bad, either maintenance or just not taking care of things correctly. So that's my main thing, is Jaya the Cat. And secondly, I work for a backline rental company. So I rent gear out. It's a place called Artist on the Road out of Amsterdam. I know I'm speaking English, but and that I've been for over 10 years. I've been there, so I've learned a lot as well. Learning a lot more because I'm primarily a drummer. So I've learned a lot about taking care of all kinds of other stuff, all kinds of other instruments and loading and delivering and packing up and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm just going to try to throw some advice your way about things that I've learned along the road and see if anything is interesting for you guys. We'll start in the beginning. Where, for instance, where you store your instruments. We always keep it at a place called M3, which is a storage facility. But if you are going to go that route, I would really highly suggest you make sure that the place is climate controlled, because if it's stored in a damp environment, obviously instruments are made of wood, so they can warp. They can have all kinds of problems involved with that. They can, it can cause rust or whatever, and also too cold or too hot. And the variation amongst those temperatures can really screw with instruments as well. If it gets really hot and then really cold quickly, that can snap a neck of a guitar easily, or warp the roundness of any of your drums. So that's really important. So keep an eye on that. And if you're storing it in your house, then obviously you should be fine. So that's important, I think. And then just cases. Cases are very important. Hard shell cases are highly recommended. We've had instances where you put a soft shell guitar up in a van, and then it shifts, something falls sideways, and boom, you snap the neck on your guitar. And that's a lot more costly than the cost of an actual case. As well with drums, because those tend to be stacked up on top, mainly in the back of a van. And if one of those falls down while you're driving, for instance, you can bend the rim, which is going to throw your whole drum sound off. It'll make it a lot harder to tune and to stay in tune. And I know it's expensive, but save up for that and try. You can always go to Marktplaats or any of those, Craigslist or whatever you guys have in the UK, and just try to find those used. And you can always repurpose things too, like get some spray glue and some foam and just cut it up yourself, spray it on there, and just make your own cases. I've done that a lot with the rental company that I work at. We'll get a new keyboard, and we have a keyboard case that fits an 88, but it's a 76 keyboard, so I'll just cut some foam and just make it work, and then cut a little spot to put your damper pedal or vice, whatever extra little tidbits you have in there. And that's important to have cases, I think. Very important. It makes everything easier to stack, easier to keep an eye on, easier to, and just safer in general. So that's, I think I highly recommend that. Hard shell cases is the way to go. And wheels. Wheels is pretty important when you're rolling all that stuff around. It's really nice to have at least a few of your instruments in cases with wheels that do lock. So you don't have to tip them. You can pop them right in the van, lock the wheels. And also it's good for just kind of transporting other things. You can stack a whole bunch of stuff on top of it, wheel your whole stack into the gig or into your storage, or whatever, and then it's safe, it's easy, and not it's not as difficult to wheel around and deal with, you know. Um, so we can talk about loading the van. I know it seems obvious, but packing it, especially for instance with tube amps, you know, they're very delicate, and you want to try not to lay those on the side. You want to try to leave them flat. So that way also you can put them in first, lay it flat, and then stack things on top of it. Um, and that's where the cases come in as well. Like that helps as well, because then you could stack a bunch of stuff on there safely. And yeah, tubes, when they break, they could be very expensive. Like in an SVT or something like that, it's like $75 for a set of tubes or something, maybe more. I'm not sure exactly the price, but they get expensive. So really try to lay everything flat and, you know, secured in there so they can't shift around, because when you're driving on the highway, it can you can bounce around a lot. Um, and just when you're packing, just do it smart. You know, it's like Tetris. You remember that? You know, like just stack it in there, keep it tight. The more breakable stuff, obviously, goes, try to get that on the bottom and tightest, and then, you know, other things like drums and stuff like that, you can stack that up there, just fill every little nook, and then guitars slide in there real nice. And um, and then merch, you know, goes on top, because that's only shirts and stuff. So that if that shifts around, it's not the end of the world. It'll just kind of, you know, fall down and not be a big deal. Try to make sure that everyone in your band is well aware to shut the back door. It sounds so stupid, but it's happened to us before, where we've driven down the highway, the back door was open, and we've had things fly onto the highway. And I was the worst. I lost my bag. I lost with my passport in it, all my tour stuff, my toiletry bag, and all my clothing and all that, and had to renew my passport. I think Carl, our old guitar player, may have lost his bag too, but we actually got it back. We found it, so he was safe, but I had to renew my passport, so that's annoying. So that's something that's pretty important as well, just to keep an eye on the van and keep an eye on the fact that everybody knows, like, oh, did you shut the van? Yeah. Did you close the door? Are you sure? If you're not sure, just stop and check it out, because that's the worst. Another side note that I've learned from years of touring is to back your van up against a wall. So then no one can open those back doors. If you, especially, you know, obviously if you have your gear in the van overnight, even at a hotel, you know, try to find a pole to lock up against, or some kind of wall, or even bushes, but always back it up against something, just to keep it, you know, just keep someone from being able to even get in it at all. And then of course, yeah, don't leave anything inside the cabin of the van either, like any backpacks or something like that, even a little Bluetooth speaker on the dashboard or something like that. Like, that's really asking for trouble. Like any thief is going to look in there and go, oh, I see a backpack. Boom. It's so easy to smash a window and grab whatever's in there. Even if you think it's just something stupid. Oh, it's just my headphones on the seat. It's not a big deal. Yeah, well, it's easy to break a window. Carl Smith, I say, yeah, always check and lock the back doors. Good advice. But it's very good advice. It's silly, and backing the van up against a wall is the most. It's something that I learned that I was like, I never ever thought of that. You know, you think, oh, the door is locked, but you know, thieves are smart. They know what they're doing. They have tools. They can smash open anything. So that's I think a very important thing, you know, especially if you're a band and you have a rental van or whatever, you know, like, also you'll be charged for that damage. You know, if you give a thief the opportunity, or just the idea that there may be something inside, oh, that might be a band, there's stuff in the back, let me try to rip that door open and try to check it out. But if it's backed up against something, they know they can just easily look and see, I can't get in that, so I'm not going to bother trying. And I think that's the whole idea behind that. locking it up like that. Um, so yeah, there you go. That's pretty good advice, I think. Um, Tips for if you're a band and you're kind of getting maybe a little bit bigger or something like that, you start flying to gigs. Um, there's a few little tips and some advice that I've learned from flying. Um, there's a couple things where if you are flying, first off, you have to try to figure out. You have to make choices of what you're going to check, which means what you're going to carry on the plane with you in the cabin, or what you're going to, or what you're going to check and what you're going to have them put underneath the plane, basically. So whenever we're flying, our guitars generally, they don't go in the plane with us. They go underneath the plane. They don't go in the cabin. So we always bring a roll of duct tape or gaffer tape with us, and you tape up the clasps of everything. So that way, one, they're less likely to open it up and take whatever's inside. Even if there's a guitar in there, they could open it up and go, ooh, tuner, boink, mine. Ooh, there's a wah-wah pedal in there, boink, mine. So if it's taped up, then one, you can see whether or not it was tampered with, and two, you have a little bit peace of mind that it won't get messed with, or just from getting bounced around, it doesn't pop open by itself and fall out of the case. I think that's pretty good too. We've learned that. And then also, sometimes you can kind of be a little bit sneaky, especially if you do have a soft shell guitar. We've been known to just take that in the plane with us, just put it on our back and just walk in and pretend, oh, I don't know nothing, I got my guitar. And that we've gotten away with that a lot, and you save a lot of money doing that. But they don't always allow that. They'll tell you, nope, sorry, sir, you have to check that. And then if you have a soft shell and you're checking it, then you're really playing with fire whether or not that thing's going to make it to the destination in one piece. But generally, yeah, I mean, just get cases, pay the money. And another bit of advice is get travel insurance. So that way, if anything does happen, you can get it back. Like those instruments are expensive. A guitar is $2,000-$3,000, and if it gets broken on their watch, then you want to be able to get that money back. We've been pretty lucky. We haven't had too many instances where bad things have happened. We've had a couple cases that were broken up a little bit. Hard shell style plastic ones. Those I don't remember what they're called, and they've been cracked or something like that. But generally, the instruments stay pretty safe inside. And then I always advise, what we do is, for instance, I don't want to put my drum computer, like a drum sampler, which is all electronics and stuff. So those are pretty delicate little things. I always take that on the plane with me. So I'll take that with my backpack, and that's my carry-on, And then other stuff that we do, we always take all of our electronics and stuff like that. I think Carl actually takes all of his on the plane as well. Like, he'll take his pedal, his tuner pedal, his wah-wah pedal, like whatever the essentials that you're going to need for the gig. You can't take everything, obviously, but you just take what you absolutely need and take that with you and just have it with you on the plane. And that's pretty good. And then also with I just remember this too, the soft shell guitar, if you do bring it on the plane with you, then a lot of times they can put it, there's always a secret little spot behind where the
stewardess?
Stewardess, thank you. Where the stewardesses sit. They have like their own little closet. And a lot of times they're like, oh, give me that, sir. I'll put it right there. Like, they're super nice generally. And they'll just put it behind there, and then it's safe. You don't have to try to store it above your head, and everyone's kind of angry at you because you're taking up more space than your normal little baggage. So that's pretty good too. Yeah. So yeah, flying. And then the last tip that I have for flying as well, which involves guitars, is detune your guitars. Unwind every one of those strings. So those strings are flopping. They're flopping like this because when you get up to flying height, the air pressure is all different. And a lot of times what it can do is with the strings being tight, they'll get even tighter and you can snap the neck on your guitar, or at least really warp it badly. I've heard of that quite a few times. So detune your guitar, just every single string, turn it down so they're flopping, it's loose, everything's nice. And that's a really good piece of advice. Detune your guitar when you fly. So that's that, and then we'll talk about, for instance, like getting to the venue. That'd be the next step, basically. Um, Generally, what I try to do is when we get to the venue, obviously introduce yourself to everybody, know who's helping you, who's in charge of the stage, so that way they're more inclined to keep an eye on your stuff or to help you out, or just in general, you want to be buddies with everybody, because they're gonna want to help you out if they're your friend. If you go in there with this crappy attitude, they're not gonna appreciate it. There's no point in that. Like, go in and be cool, and everybody has a lot better night. And when we do load in, we try to load in and generally keep all of our stuff together, all in one general location, so that way you can look at it. Don't mix it in with the other musician, because there'll be other bands there, and all of a sudden your guitar ends up in their little pile, and then you're stressing out later. It's sound check time, you can't find your guitar or whatever it might be. Keep it all in one little section so you can keep an eye on it. I think that's obviously a good way to go. And then and then first thing generally that we do is we start asking, like, okay, are we sharing backline? Are we the headliner? If we're the headliner, are we setting up? Are we able to leave our stuff on stage after sound check, or do we have to break it down? If you do have to break it down, where can we put it safely? And so we don't have to have it on our mind all of the time, like, oh man, leaving it where anyone can grab it. Like, keep an eye on that, like put all your empties in one spot, put all your, stuff that is not being used in one spot, so you can really make sure that it's there when you're done with your gig. And then another thing that happens a lot is you'll be sharing gear with someone, or maybe even using the house backline. If that's the case, it's important to know and to have a little chat with the other band, like, oh, this drummer's using my stuff. Okay, well, just have a talk with him, see what kind of guy he is, if he's a basher, if he plans on moving all of your stuff. You got to keep an eye on that, to make sure that you're not stressed out when it is time for you to play. So, like, is the drummer a lefty, where he's going to switch all of your stuff around? All of a sudden, everything's opposite of what you're used to, and that's going to take an extra 10 minutes to switch it all back. That's something always to consider as well. And I think just generally, just talking to the other band that might be using your gear is really important too, because then they generally will have a bit more respect for your equipment. They'll see that you're paying attention, and they'll see that you're a cool dude, and they'll go, okay, well, I'm not just gonna bash away and whatever, like to crank this all the way up, or just push it off to the side. Like, it's just important that everybody's on the same page and everyone knows exactly how things are gonna roll. Like, okay, this is happening now. Okay, you're done at this time. And then they're maybe more likely to help out. They're not just going to get done and walk away. A lot of times, the drummer, for instance, will be like, oh yeah, let me help you get all your stuff on stage, and get yours off. And then by doing that, you just become buddies, and it just runs a lot smoother and takes some of the stress out of your situation. So I think that helps a lot too. Just really paying attention to your own gear, and making sure that everyone knows that you are well aware of your gear and that it's yours, and that you're doing them a favor by letting them use their stuff. That's something too that they have to keep in mind. You traveled with it, you brought it all there. It's your job to keep an eye on it, but it's also your job to make sure they know. And just in general, marking all your gear, I think, is a very good tip. Like, for instance, if you have any extra electrical strips that you use for your fans, if you bring fans or something, or in general, like electrical strips is the main one because I'll use one of those extra for my drum sampler. But it's so many times that I've forgotten it. But again, that comes back to also knowing who's going to help you on stage and stuff like that, who's going to break it down, because they, even make an announcement, yo, this is mine, please, don't forget. Because a lot of times the guys after the gig are just boom, they want to break things down as quick as possible because either they want to go home or they want to party and have a couple drinks too. So they're breaking it down. So if you don't have a sticker on your stuff, they could easily grab it and just throw it in their box of, electrical boxes or whatever, stuff like that, even cables or what, all that kind of stuff. It's important just to just mark stuff so they know what it is. And then also, yeah, if you're their buddy, they're going to put a little extra time into helping you. They'll help you throw your drums into your cases, or they'll roll your empty guitar cases, guitar cab cases up and help you load it up, because it's important to just become friends with everybody right off the bat. And try not to just mix your gear with other bands. Try not to keep your empty way over there on the other side of the stage. Keep everything close, and mark all your stuff and keep an eye on it and know who's who and who's helping you. I think that goes a long way. And also, I think it's important too for instance, other members of your own band to know how much stuff you have and what everything looks like as a pile, everything. Oh, wait, everyone should know, we should have 4 guitars, right? Oh, where is it? Because if that guitar player is not around, you shouldn't just go, well, it's his problem. No, it's everyone's problem, because you're going to be 2.5 hours away the next morning, and you're not going to have a guitar because you were too lazy to speak up, or you didn't pay enough attention. I think it's very important to be a team player when it comes to bands and stuff like that. Like, everybody should know as much as you can about everyone else's gear. Even breaking down gear, like there's times where, your guitar player gets stuck at merch, talking to people or something, and then you got to break stuff down. Sometimes I'll break down Carl's equipment, or vice versa. If I'm out somewhere else doing something else, then, Carl will help out and break down my drums, and by doing that, you learn a lot more about other people's gear, and you're also, you're able to make sure that all your stuff comes back with you and stays with you. I think that's important as far as just keeping an eye on your own gear and keeping an eye on your bandmates' gear is it's good to do. Making friends with everyone that works on stage, because they're important and they will help you out, and they'll help you out a lot more if you're a cool dude. So that's something. That's what you do right when you first start getting to a gig, I guess. And then as far as actual setup on stage, I think we can talk about that a little bit. A lot of venues have 2 types of power. They have backline power and they have power for lights. So it's important to really ask and make sure that you're plugging all your guitar amps into the proper power circuit, or whatever you want to call it. Because if you go into the lights, those always have power surges, because obviously lights are flashing and they have different electrical pulses that are going through, and that can mess up your amp really bad. You can blow tubes or preamps, or it can just cut out on you. Or also, the main thing that it does almost all the time is it'll just buzz. So you'll just have really crappy sound on stage, and you'll be like checking everything. Is it my guitar cable? Is it my this? Is it that? Is it my tuner? Is it, you're checking all your stuff, and all it is simply is that you're plugged into the wrong outlet. And then I think that's That's something a lot of people don't know, and something I never knew. I never knew that before playing in Jaya the Cat. Actually, I never knew that there was separate power for backline power and lights power, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's good advice. Carl reminded me of that. I was like, ooh, nice one, thank you. And then as far as power surges go and things like that, or whatever electrical stuff goes, your cabs and your amps always have ohmage, and you got to make sure those are matched up. If you have a 16 ohm cabinet, you better have that head set to 16 ohm, because that's another way to blow up your cab, or vice versa, actually blow up your guitar amp itself. And that's something nobody wants to do because that's so expensive to fix. You blow your tubes or something like that. That's horrible. So that's very important to make sure you keep an eye on that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, just bringing, generally just bring an extra speaker cable, an extra, oh, that's another thing. If a band is going to use your cabinet, that's where this all comes in too, actually. If they're using their cab with their own head, make sure that they know that too. Like, oh, what ohm are you running on your head? So try to make sure that they're aware of that. And also, a lot of times you'll have like a speak on out or just a speaker cable out, like a regular jack style. So make them aware to do that. Like sit there with them and actually show them how to hook it up. Like take that time. Don't just hide backstage or whatever. Like go, oh, you're using my gear. Okay, listen. Do this. Do. I think that's a best way to save your gear. It takes 10 extra minutes to hang out on stage and make sure everything's okay, than to just hide and hope for the best. I think that's pretty good. And then, marking all your stuff. That's all I can really think about on that one. After the gig, it's very important. There's a few little tips that I have to try to make sure that everything stays the way it should. Like, for instance, first thing is after a gig, always wipe down your guitar strings, because there's a lot of smoke. There's smoke machines, so that puts all kinds of gook and stuff like that. Also, just in general, the sweat that comes off of you, and stuff like that. So it'll just put like a gross film on your strings and also on your neck of your guitars and stuff like that. So really wipe them down afterwards, I think, is really important. It causes rust as well because you have the salt from all your sweat that's on there. So that causes rust. So that's no good. So it'll prolong your strings if you just wipe them down. And then, wrap all your cables correctly, really, really wrap them nice. Don't just throw them in a knotted ball and shove them in your bag. Like, that's just stupid. I mean, they cost X amount of money and they'll just last longer. So always wrap your cables really well, I think. Double, triple check the stage when you're done. Really, really look at everything, because you will forget that little power cable, or you'll forget something silly, if you have a pick holder on your mic stand, for instance, that gets forgotten a million times, or a drink holder that you hook onto the mic stand. We've forgotten so many of those up there. So that's important to grab all that stuff, triple check, and a couple different people, because different eyes see different things. Like, for instance, the drum rug. Don't forget your drum rug. It sounds so stupid, but if you have your own, there's so many times you're going to break all your gear down. You're going to walk away. You're going to stand there like a hero looking, going, yeah, we did it. Nice. And you walk away and you forget that drum rug that's just sitting there, So that's important. Drummers, don't forget your drum rug. And when you're done breaking all your stuff down, stack it all nicely in a corner as best you can. Stack it, put it all real tight, keep it close. Don't keep your one guitar under the stage and then the stack of drums over by the toilet and then this over there. Like, Put it all together so you can walk by it, look at it, and go, okay, that's our pile. That's Jaya the Cat's stuff. That's everything. I can kind of look at it. Okay, boom, 4 guitars, snare, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toms. Okay, there. Oh, my cymbals. Yep, those are there. Like always, super triple check and keep everything tight, keep everything together, and all of the bandmates should be involved with that, and try to keep an eye on everybody's stuff. So I think that goes a long way as well. Just really paying attention, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, some extra tips and tricks that I can think of maybe. I guess this goes sort of on the power side of things, of just simply turning your amps on and off, that I've learned that I didn't know as a drummer, where you turn the power on, wait for like 10 seconds, a good 10, 15 seconds, and then pop the standby on. Because it's the same kind of deal. If you just turn them both on, you put power and then standby, you'll get a power surge. And then in that case, that's how you also can, blow your tubes or something like that, or whatever, So that's important to like put the power on first, wait 10 seconds, and then standby. And also make sure the volume is down first. Volume down, power on, wait, standby on. And vice versa for turning it off. Standby off, wait, power off. It sounds silly, and if you are a guitar player, you should kind of know this, but there's a lot of new guys that don't really know. So that's something that I learned. I had no idea. And always bring extra everything if you can. Bring an extra speaker cable. Bring an extra jack cable. Bring extra batteries. Bring your string winder, like all extra tools and stuff like that. Like have a little care package. So that's something. Just having extra of everything is important too, because you're on stage and you're panicking and the speaker cable's out and you have no other option. You got to try to find another band to bring something. Like, no, you should have a little case on the side of the stage. Bam, I'll open it up. I got this, I got that, I got that. Extra battery for the tuner, no problem, I have it. I don't have to find the sound guy and ask him, and then he's got to go search around or go somewhere and buy it. Like, just bring everything that you think could possibly go wrong. Have extras. I see Lounge Bars asking about replacing drum skins. That's a weird kind of question. My wife mentioned that too, but it really, really, really super depends on the drummer itself, how hard they hit, what their kind of technique is. If they're more of a basher kind of guy that, everything's single hits, like super power, you're going to create divots in the head. And then that can be, one or two gigs, you're going to need a new snare head or something like that. But if you're one of the guys that's hitting more rim shots or lighter style music, then they can last for a long time. I generally, like my snare, I'll go about maybe 10 gigs or something like that for my snare, I suppose. Kick drum will last me a lot longer. It'll last me 20, 30 gigs sometimes. But you kind of just gotta eyeball it. You gotta see it. Like, so, a good way to test it is just to, because every time you tune it, you're going to end up cranking it more and more and more and more, and then it's stretching. And then if you detune it a bit, like you'll see it create a bit of a bowl shape. If it's doing that, then that head is just way too stretched out, and you should definitely change it. You should do it right away, because if it's bowled out like that, then it's not going to have the right tone. It's not going to have the right action. It's not going to have the right bounce back, So I think just kind of keep an eye on it and just, pay attention. Like, also, like everybody plays differently. Like sometimes bands will borrow my drum kit, and like he's a drummer that plays with his toms very flat like this. So his technique is to come downwards on it like so, but I have my toms tilted like this. So when he's coming down on it, he's creating a divot every single time he hits. And then that gets ruined. And after one gig, I'm like, dude, really? You just ruined my drums. Like I have to change all of my heads now, but that's, I guess, kind of the drawback of being the headliner or something like that. Cause then, you're sharing gear generally out of saving time. And also then there's less that I have to do. I don't have to take my whole drum kit up and re-mic it and all that stuff. It's just there, do some minor adjustments. But sometimes I pay the price for that. Like some drummers just have a different technique and they beat the heck out of my drums. And that sucks. And then you got to change the heads. And that's expensive. So you got to sort of question whether or not you're going to hold this guy liable or just say, well, it's just part of the game. I got to just do it, but that's just the way it is, Other little advice about touring and stuff like that, I think, is make sure you have the correct adapters for different countries that you might be traveling to. If you're going to the UK, make sure you have adapters for everything. And I think good advice is to have, possibly, if you can, actually have the power cable for that country that can plug directly into your cabinet, as opposed to getting one of them little white adapters, because those, also those get lost very easily, and sometimes they're unreliable. Some have the little long tubular fuses in them, and some don't. Some are grounded, some are not. And it's always kind of tough to, if you're last minute going to the local store, the local, wherever you might be able to find it in whatever town you're in, they might not have exactly what you want. It might not actually work. So make sure once you find the ones that you do like, take it with you, I'm seeing lounge bar as well. Aside from adapters, are there differences in the actual power that impact the equipment? Not generally. I think generally the only time that it's actual different power is when you're going to like the States, like 110 versus 220. And then you're going to have to get an actual, what do you call them? Like a voltage regulator box, or a power converter, where you're gonna have to convert the power from 110 to 220 or vice versa. But the UK has the same power, so does almost every country in Europe. So that's generally not an issue, but just the shape of the outlet itself is what you have to get that a little adapter for. But yeah, mainly if you go to the US, or I think even Australia, like a lot of bands that come here to Europe, always, they always have to get power adapters. I mean, power regulators and voltage regulators and stuff like that. And those, you can rent them from backline companies and stuff, like Artists on the Road, where I'm from. But yeah, generally you shouldn't have to worry about that. It's just, like I said, it's just the shape of the outlet itself. What we generally do is we'll put one outlet on a power block strip. So we'll put that outlet, and then I can take that one, plug that into their power, take my strip, plug, 3 or 4 things that I might need in the back, and not have to have a million different adapters. You just put one on a strip, put it near the drums. Okay, there's my fan, there's my drum computer, and there's my blah, 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 whatever else it might be. And then same for front of stage for Carl, or for a guitar player that has multiple pedals. Like, just get one adapter with a power strip, and then you can plug a few things into that strip and not have to have a million different adapters. And then again, don't forget those, mark them. Usually what we do is we tape our adapters onto our power strip, and then we put a sticker, or at least write on it your band name on the power strip itself. And keep an eye on it, and don't forget it. Extra batteries if you have a tuner. That's all. That's about it, really. I don't have too much more good advice as far as that goes. So Yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, and mainly just keep an eye on your stuff. Wipe down all your gear. Wipe your strings down. Even cymbals and drums. I think it's important to give them a good wipe down every, maybe once a month or something, because there's so much gook in the air that ruins things and causes mainly rust and corrosion. Anything metal that's covered in a sticky film from a smoke machine or a hazer or whatever, it's all moisture and all the sweat in the air, and that corrodes metal. So you'll see it around your drums, around the drum lugs. You'll see a little bit of rust forming. Just give it a good wipe down once in a while. Every couple months, maybe take your rim off your drum 100, like all the way off, and just give it a good wipe down. Maybe even use some metal polish or whatever, some chrome polish, if you'd like. Um, be nice to the sound engineer. Absolutely. I mean, he's all part of it. That's what I mean by being a good guy. When you show up, make friends with everybody. It's super important. They'll have a lot better time. They'll like you. They'll put more effort into making you sound better. The stagehands will put more effort into helping you out. And the monitor guy, like, be his buddy, and be smart about just making sure that they kind of know that you're professional, and know that you know what you're doing, and know that you appreciate what they're doing. I think that's super important. And appreciate it. Thank them afterwards. You know, I think that's about it. I mean, that doesn't have to do with really equipment or nothing, but I mean, it's going to make your equipment sound better if you're nice to that sound guy. Um, but yeah, I guess I'm going to wrap it up. I don't know. I don't have too much more. I'll look through my notes and see if anything. Um, yeah, keep an eye on your gear. Back the van up against a wall. I think that's really important. If you're flying, detune your guitars and get some hard cases. You know? Yeah. I'm going to wrap it up. Nice talking to you guys. I hope to see you sometime. Cheers.